Welcome back to the second hour of our lecture, and welcome back as you prepare to listen to our lecture concerning the popular Christianity and the popular culture. As I was saying when I quoted Mayer's point of view about culture and popular culture, every popular culture carries the weight of a grace. And another way is that a culture that is popular and is acceptable is a culture that people can be able to walk through easily and enjoyable. But culture that are not open are difficult and are restricted to our environment. Today I had a friend who was asking me some cultural differences and issue about Nigeria or Africa compared to Asia and Korea per se. He now asked me this question and I was surprised. He says he saw a news about one culture specifically, but he's not aware that in Nigeria, when someone uh, steals something, then you can cut off his hand that he steals. And then if someone committed, uh, I don't want to use fornication or adultery, but someone who raped someone with his senses and other things, they cut off his manhood. But in Korea, they jail you and later bring you back and release you, which is injustice for them. But our own, to cut off someone's uh, dicks because he raped someone, I mean, it means no life for those kind of people, number one. Number two, what judgment are we giving them instead of allowing God to judge? So, my prescriptions about our culture is the culture that might work for you, the same culture might not work for the next person. So, why don't you embrace your culture and work with it and don't worry about how it ends and what could be the problem? So this is what I'm introducing to you as we continue the lecture directly from our PPT as you want. So where were we? Somewhere here, isn't it? So but here says as Mayer points out, however, popular culture can still be a conduit for common grace. But conditions are such today that our the condition today is such that we have to uh, today that they make it difficult even for common grace to retard the malevolent effect of an omnipresence population popular culture whose fundamental goal is to liberate people from all restriction or restraint. Indeed, fundamentals social institutions, including the university, are designed to shape the moral character of any student. So, if you talk about culture, culture is practically a way of life. And as a way of life, we all have to march into it. We all have to go into it and stay put to that. But today, it seems that all institutions must submit to the dictates of popular culture and are source of moral uh, disarray. So the moral disarray, the moral decadent, moral life, moral plans, moral future of people uh, for the society is what most schools are focusing. When a student or somebody graduated and the life is not good, people say the school have no good culture, has no good background, has no good philosophy, have no good whatever. Consequently, Myers assert popular cultures as we know it poses a great problem for Christian than it usually acknowledges. God, he acknowledged, can accomplish his purpose for every society, but Romans 1 suggests that sometimes his purpose is judgment rather than mercy. Now, and the popular cultures, apart from common grace, may be an instrument of the former rather than the latter one. Now, if you look at this discussion that we have been saying, we says that not only do Christians have something significant to offer non-Christian, especially in terms of special redeeming grace, but non-Christians have something significant to offer Christians as well, especially in the form of common cultural grace. In fact, the cultural contributions of non-believers are often more thoughtful and of a higher quality than the cultural contributions of believers. Okay? As a result, the church should be both humble to the grace, to be humble by and grateful for the common grace roles that their non-Christians counterpart plays in culture or in cultural affairs. How do the author of the book Editions of Finding flash out these kind of things? Kinmeyer's article, which talks about modernity, morality, and common grace, Christian reflections on dynamic of popular culture, provides a framework for thinking about this matter. He begin by pointing out the unique rules or role that evangelists, especially Francis A. Schaeffer, played in 1960s and in 1970s in receiving or reviving an interest in evangelical cultural engagement. So if it were there, other people's mind, they would have no worry about this. But Myers, or rather Francis, also fought to see the revival of the interest of the evangelical cultural engagement. So people were free to engage and be able to participate from the culture. I remember when we were growing, we discovered certain things that I said we should not do because it is devilish or fetish, because of the white people brought their Christianity with their culture and impacted them to us. Today we even live the life of the white, the Westerner more than our own, because we didn't know that it was just a part of culture that was imposed and initiated in our daily life. So we need to be careful and watch out. Whatever we do that has a beginning must surely have an end. Now, Schaeffer Francis, his vision was inspired by the Calvinist doctrine of the Lordship of Christ over the whole of their life. About the same time, Charles Henry, Thomas Howard, Frank Gabeling, and Clyde Kilby were advocating the same agenda as Schaeffer, who was especially concerned to discern the worldview implicit in various cultural forms. In Schaeffer's also, we can say that the disciples pointed out, however, that even those who with non-Christian worldview still generate cultural products that supremely were in keeping with Christian norms, a fact that Mayers believe can be traced back to the common grace. But just as the Scoffer generations was renouncing its cultural benefitedness, at that as the Scoffer generation, as that very moment, the surrounding cultures itself was distinguished or disintegrating religion into anti-cultural religion or anti-cultural society, which is what Philip also talked about. This culture destruction was the fruit of the seed of disorder planted in the modern period. A fact, okay? A fact, well documented by sociologist Daniel Bell. The cultural malice has been particularly pronounced or precious or particularly pernicious for the post-Scoffer generation to deal with. It has failed to reflect wisely on the merit or the demerit of particular culture articles, and so the overall systematic character of the cultural life is now more functional because it has been tampered with when it comes to culture and Christianity. Now, take a most positive view of popular culture and its common grace contributions, especially through the media of film and television. In this essay or in this subject, Seeking Holy Moment at the movie, Darren Hutch argued that Christians ought to take the act more seriously than in the work. Okay? More seriously than where it could be destructive. So, the contentious rests on the Christian aesthetic of French film critic Andrew Bazin, as well as the doctrine of common grace. Bazin, as described in a scheme from Walking Life 2001, believed that films is especially effective in recording and revealing God's active presence in human life. It could be possible and it should be possible, which is right. For whatever it takes, we should make sure that human lives have a future when it comes to that. Since God is manifested in all the creations, film documents this manifestation as no other medium. Okay, so this is where we have figured out. Now, if we look at our note in page 44 of our note, we can see some explanations about offers viewers brief glimpses of transcendence. Now, furthermore, or rather, if I can take it a little backward, we'll talk about Andrew Bazin as well as the doctrine of common grace. And Bazin, as described in a scheme from writing A Working Life 2001, we say that believes that film is especially in effective in reading and revealing God's active presence in human lives. Since God is manifested in all creation, film documented this manifestation as no other medium can, and offers viewers brief glimpses of transaction. If God also takes a positive interest in how unbelievers use God's given talent to produce a work or beauty, then we will know there are certain things that requires adjustment. Now, again, we said that Richard Moore, then filmmaker, should be no exception to these principles of common grace. Most Christian critics simply moralize about the latest Hollywood production. Hughes herself, or Hughes himself, however, believes that they should cultivate a thirst for the transcendent in view of or in viewers by reorienting their expectation. Additionally, he suggests that they should equip themselves with the ability to understand the medium of film, but the culture that make difference. It's also possible for them to be able to address. For Hughes, therefore, seeking holy moment at the movie can be a spiritual discipline that, like prayer, meditation, and solution, foster intimacy with God. But for this to happen, viewers must understand how movie works. Where are we? So this is sort of what we have been doing, and we need to understand what we are doing as this will continue. For this latter concern, Hughes draws on the recent work of Frank Butch Brown, God Test, a good test, bad test, and Christian test, who contend that the sense must be trained if they are to be used rightly, and that good test consists of atheistic, perceiving, enjoying, and also judging. If viewers develop themselves in this view, then viewing films must become an experience of autumn sanctus, or a holy leisure, and not just mindless entertainment. Entertainment. Hughes concludes his essay by offering practical advices on how to become an active and engaged film viewer, including several help websites and a list of his favorite directory and their most see production. These things that will help in his running around and also making culture right. Now, Darren Hughes, in his essay Gaining the Whole War, reflections on movies and what they tells us about ourselves. Drew Trater is concerned about the effect of popular culture on the church. Drew Trater is concerned about the effect of popular culture on the church as well. Whatever we do, we need to be careful on how it is. He makes it quite clear that believers must engage culture in a profound way out of obedience to Christ without any kind of compromise. So culture is right and important in his way when he tried to explain, and that in culture it must be viewed as the reality of it. Now, when you look at this question, like, he makes it quite clear that believers must engage, and a whole host of questions present themselves for considering along this line. But Trotas chooses to focus on the questions about engaging the popular arts, especially movie. What can people learn about themselves through this medium? How can such insight benefit Christianity? On the basis of common grace, he believed that film has much to teach believers about sin, humanity, community, joy, hatred, love, and depression. They are also adapt to exposing viewers to a variety of theological and physical issues such as freedom and determinism, space and time, life and art. All right. So, without a kind of compromise, that was his ending expression. He makes it quite clear that believers must engage culture in profound ways. So, we need to have a significant way of addressing our culture in order to work with it. A whole host of questions present themselves for consideration along these lines, but Trotas chooses to focus on the questions about engaging the popular arts, specifically movies. So, is movies important for us? Movies important in our life, or because movie entertain and keep people solemnly to their feet? Now, these are a few questions, two questions that we might want to consider in our part of study. Okay, what can people learn about themselves through this media? How can such insight benefit Christian? How can such insight benefit others? So you can ponder on that, or then I'll give you a different task to do. But if you choose to do that, explain to me why you choose to do this question. On the basis of common grace is what we are talking about. He believes that films has much to teach believers about sin, humanity, community, joy, hatred, and the depression. Okay, so this is what we have been talking about. They are also adept at exposing viewers to varieties of theological and philosophical issues such as freedom and determinism, space, time, life, and art. These are some of the things that we have been talking about in our daily expression. Now, award winner for being pictured in 2001, after approving some background on film production and basic story link, Trotter set forth negative and positive themes from the movie that proves instructions for Christian. He said he scrutinized the movie throughout or through going humanistic orientation, and then takes a look at the redemptive or redeeming power of both marital love and human community. He concludes his reflections by reading to his readers that Christ or Christians must be actively engaged with culture, and film is an important component in the process. Believers must be able to gain. Believers must be able to bring out something out of whatever it has been. Then, whatever it is will be part of us as a culture. So, friends, this is our second hour, which we have come to an end of the second hour. We take a break now and return back when we finish the third hour. Stay tuned and we shall come back to you. See you next.